Let's start with a wild thought experiment. What if the people running our country, our courts, and our biggest companies weren't people at all? What if they were artificial intelligence? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but stick with me, because digging into this idea forces us to ask some very real questions about the world we're in right now.
I mean, let's be honest. A lot of us feel a deep frustration with the systems that are supposed to run our lives, right? We look around and see institutions that just feel broken or stuck or just plain unfair. So before we jump into the radical solution, let's quickly break down the 3 core problems this whole AI idea is meant to solve.
First up, you've got politics. The big problem here? One word: gridlock. It feels like every important decision gets held hostage by partisan fighting, and the result is just dysfunction. Progress slows to a crawl, and sometimes the whole thing just grinds to a halt.
Okay, problem number 2, our justice system. Here, the big worry is bias. Now, the ideal is supposed to be blind justice, but we all know that human judges can be influenced by all sorts of things, their own politics, personal prejudices, even just their emotions, and that can lead to outcomes that aren't always consistent or fair.
And third, let's talk corporations. The issue here? Greed. This relentless, laser focus on profit above all else, well, it can lead to massive inequality and to decisions that end up hurting workers, communities, and the environment. So you've got gridlock, bias, and greed. With those problems on the table, let's dive into the pretty wild idea that could, in theory, fix them all.
So yeah, for the next few minutes, we're going to seriously walk through the arguments for replacing human leaders in Congress, the courts, and corporations with AI. It's a thought experiment, for sure, but it's one that tells us a whole lot about what we really want from our institutions in the first place. All right, the first major argument, and this is really the cornerstone of the whole thing, it's all about objectivity. The core idea here is that an AI could just strip away all the messy, irrational, and often unfair human emotions and biases that tend to cloud our judgment and mess up our systems.
This slide just lays it out perfectly. Look on one side, a human Congress. It's swayed by party loyalty, powerful lobbyists, and let's face it, the constant pressure to get reelected. But an AI Congress, in theory, it would only be influenced by cold, hard data, pure logic, and one programmed goal: maximize public utility. That just means doing the greatest good for the greatest number of people. It doesn't have a party to please, and it never has to worry about winning an election.
Now, let's apply that same logic to the courts. It builds pretty clearly, right? A human judge might be influenced, even subconsciously, by their political views or personal feelings about a case. An AI judge, though, would operate like a purely logical engine. It would just apply the facts of the case directly to the established law and all the legal precedent. No fear, no favor.
And wow, this really highlights the problem in the corporate world. Just look at these numbers. Back in 1965, the average CEO made about 21 times more than their average worker. Seems like a lot, right? Well, today, that number has just exploded to over 344 times more. That's a direct result of a system where human leaders are often incentivized to enrich themselves above all else.
So here's the crucial point, the real kicker. An AI doesn't need a golden parachute. It doesn't want an 8-figure salary. Its salary would be 0. By removing that deeply human motive of personal greed, you could, in theory, create a corporate leader that's focused only on the long-term health of the company, its workers, and its customers. Okay, on to the next key argument for AI governance. And this one is all about radical efficiency. Our human-led systems are often just incredibly slow. An AI, on the other hand, could operate on a completely different level, at a completely different speed. Just think about how a law gets passed right now. It takes months, sometimes years of debate. It gets bogged down in partisan fighting, and sometimes the whole system just collapses into a government shutdown because people can't agree. It's a real slog.
But for an AI, a government shutdown would be seen as a catastrophic failure of its core mission. It's not a political bargaining chip. It's a mathematical error, a system crash that must be avoided at all costs. So, the number of shutdowns you could expect? A big, fat 0.
And our courts? They're facing a very similar problem. You know the saying, justice delayed is justice denied? Well, right now, our system is absolutely buried under a mountain of cases, creating these huge backlogs that can take years and years to clear. An AI judiciary could just tackle this head-on. Just imagine a system that can analyze the entire history of case law in a fraction of a second. A system that processes cases 24/7 without ever needing a coffee break. It could apply computational precision to finding facts, court backlogs, They could literally become a thing of the past.
And this is where we get to maybe the most profound part of the whole argument. Because it's not just about doing the same old things better or faster. It's about fundamentally changing the very definition of success for our most powerful institutions.
So, instead of the federal budget being this big political tug-of-war, an AI Congress could treat it like a massive math problem. The goal wouldn't be to score points for your party, it would be to allocate resources in the most efficient way possible to get the best outcomes for the entire nation, all based on data.
And for corporations, this would be a total game changer. Instead of only focusing on profit, an AI CEO could be hard-coded to follow what's called a triple bottom line framework. This means success isn't just about money. It's measured by its impact on people and the planet, right alongside profit.
And this is basically what that looks like. It's not about getting rid of profit, not at all. It's about putting it in balance with other crucial goals. The AI's core objective would be to find that sweet spot, that optimal path that serves all three of these goals equally. Financial success couldn't come at the expense of social or environmental ruin.
And for the courts, the mission becomes incredibly pure. No activism, no legislating from the bench. The AI's only goal, its entire reason for being, would be to serve as a perfect, logical engine, just applying the law as it's written to the facts as they are presented. The highest virtues would be consistency and predictability.
So, after exploring this whole radical idea, we are left with a pretty monumental question. Because, let's be real, replacing our flawed human leaders with seemingly perfect, logical machines isn't a simple upgrade. It's a trade-off, a huge one. On the one hand, you have this incredible promise, the promise of a system that's free from human bias, a system that's radically efficient, perfectly objective, and driven by pure, mission-focused logic. It's a really compelling vision of a world without gridlock or greed or prejudice.
But what do we lose in that process? In our quest for a perfect system, do we engineer out the very things that make us human? Our empathy, our intuition, our capacity for mercy, even our right to just be messy and imperfect? That's the question this thought experiment really leaves us with. In a world run by perfect logic, what happens to the human soul?